الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today inshallah we're going to start a new series and inshallah hopefully a new initiative to help us to better seek Islamic knowledge and to grow in this knowledge that we're seeking. Because a student of knowledge, in order for them to be successful in the path, they have to know the path and the tools that are required to get there and to begin from there, and that path, that road. At the same time, the student of knowledge has to know what is expected from them in terms of knowledge, sciences, from the beginner to intermediate to advanced. And so what I want to do, inshallah, in these lessons, inshallah, they will not be very long, but we want to make them both theory and practice. So we spend some time talking about some of the important topics about seeking knowledge. A beginner's guide to seeking Islamic knowledge. How do you do talab al-ilm? What are the subjects we're studying? How do we go about reviewing for them? How do we compile them, etc.? And inshallah, after that, we'll try to do privately, or on the side there, some of those ulum that we need to cover from the beginning. You see, brothers, there's some knowledges that we need to go from the start of the road, inshallah ta'ala. And this is very important because, as we'll see in a second, many of the challenges that the brothers and sisters face in seeking Islamic knowledge, they come from the methodological aspects. What is meant by talab al-ilm? Who's a student of knowledge? What's a mubtadi? What's a beginner? Mutawassil, muntahi, or mutafawwiq? What are these levels? Beginner, intermediate, advanced. What does it mean to have knowledge? How do you know you have understood something? What are the books I have to cover? What are the alternative lessons or curriculums available? And also questions about how, because there's a lot of information, alhamdulillah, presented already on the website, already throughout these classes, that the brothers and the teachers have presented about how to seek knowledge, but we're trying to pick on the points that can help us practically get to those levels. Because there is, and I believe most of us would admit, that there exists gaps in some of our knowledge despite seeking it and studying it. And this is either because we didn't understand something properly the first time, or we haven't reviewed it, or we didn't really have the full context in the beginning. And I want to begin by first talking about some of the problems when there is either a lack of proper methodology or someone is studying but they're not achieving the results. It's not something new, brothers and sisters. Ulama in the past, they complained that some of the tulab al-ilm are seeking knowledge for years and they don't come up with anything. And we read first a very beautiful statement Imam Ibn Qayyim, he writes in Kitab al-Fawaid, the book al-Fawaid, page 251. He said, الجهل بالطريق وآفاتها, being ignorant of the path and some of the problems of that, ومقصود, يعني, so آفاتها ومقصود, be ignorant of the path, يعني, of whatever you're trying to obtain. آفاتها, its difficulties that are in that path. ومقصود, and the objective of that path. يوجب التعب الكثير مع فائدة القليلة. That this ignorance of the path, the difficulties that will be on that path, the objectives of the path, will lead then to a person having many problems and very little benefit. And this is important because when it comes to seeking knowledge, if you don't know in the beginning what you're trying to get, how you're going to get it, how long it's going to take to get there, then you get tired on the way and you don't have much to show for it because you didn't follow either a proper methodology or you veered from the path, as they say. Or you didn't know, for example, there's a challenge, such and such challenge will come your way, and when it came your way, you say, okay, I'm out of here. So this is why the ulama, they spend a lot of time trying to talk about the pathway of seeking knowledge, and there's so many books, I'm sure many brothers they've seen, where some of them will be covered as well, about the adab of talib ilm. of طلب العلم and a طالب علم, seeking knowledge, the etiquettes and the student knowledge, but also about the curriculum and the way to study. Here now another quote. شيخ العلامة الزرنوجي رحمه الله in his كتاب تعليم المتعلم طريقة التعلم, page 53. And I think we took this before some years ago. We took the mukhtasar version of this book. He says that I already have seen many of the students of knowledge in this time striving in seeking knowledge, وَلَا يَصِلُونَ, but they don't reach. They don't reach to obtain the objective. They don't obtain its benefits and its fruits, which is knowledge, which is action and spreading the knowledge. They have been deprived because they either have fallen off the path or left off its conditions or prerequisites. And anyone who veers from the path will become misguided and he will not obtain his objective, little or a lot. And so this is what prompted the Imam then to write تعليم متعلم طريقة تعلم, teaching the student how to gain the knowledge, or the student teacher and teaching the knowledge, or the student to gain the knowledge. So this book, this is the muqaddimah of the kitab, he wrote that. And again, he lives many years ago, he's saying this. فلما رأيت كثير من طلاب علم في زماننا, he said many of the student knowledge have noticed that. What do you think of our times? Right? In the thousands who came and they went and they didn't gain nothing. Not that they didn't learn and benefit, but not what they hoped to achieve. And this is a reality we have to pay attention to, brothers and sisters. Another quote, علامة ابن بدران الحنبلي رحمه الله, his excellent kitab مدخل إلى مذهب Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, page 253. All of this taken from one of the buhuth of a contemporary researcher called التدرج في طلب علم. So he mentioned علامة ابن بدران الحنبلي, a well-known scholar. He has a book called مدخل إلى مذهب Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. He teaches us in that book how to become and study madhab of the Hanabila. Usul, qawaid, rawaya, nas, all the things you need to know, all terminologies, the scholars. It's like it's been translated in English now. It's like 1,000 pages or something like this. It's a big book like this. In there he says, i'lam, no, that many people spend years learning knowledge, some rather even one knowledge, and they don't obtain anything or very little. Again, he's writing this in the book at the beginning. No, he says, there are some student people who spend years seeking knowledge. Sometimes بالعلم الواحد, he says. بل في علم الواحد. They're studying just one subject. And at the end, they didn't get nothing. And he says some of them, and this is the part that's reality and it's scary. He says some of them, ربما قضوا أعمارهم فيه. They waste their entire life, or not waste, they spend the entire life therein. ولم يرتقوا عن درجة المبتدئين. They don't go past the level of beginner. Well, it's a reality. This is something we have to pay attention to. We don't want to be end up like that. Because the ulama, they made the path. They showed us the way. But this is a reality we find. Someone may be studying one subject for years. And he's still, in his own estimation of ilm, he's still mubtadi, still beginner. Again, the estimation is based on the knowledge, right? Knowledge is the curriculum, and the estimation will be this person still in the beginning stages. Imagine now, with comparative, someone goes to university or high school and he's still in grade 9. Imagine somebody, 5-10 years, he's still in grade 9. We said, this guy is khalas. It's a khasara, right? That's what we think, it's failure. And the reason why is not because he's not intelligent. He can't master certain things to get him out of high school. And this is a reality we find. I mean, in the secular studies. What about in the ilm shar'i? It's the same thing. And again, the scholars, they talk about this a lot. Now, I want to mention, in the past, how the scholars used to seek knowledge, and due to the correctness of their methodology and the intensity of it, they were able to obtain knowledge very quickly. I know sometimes people wonder, how fast can someone become knowledgeable? وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. Your bounty of your Lord is not restricted. That's the kind of intention you should have. First of all, your ambition should be above the roof, brothers and sisters. That's how it should be. No one comes and says, it's just kind of become like a end of the class. No, you want to be top of the class. You want to be more knowledgeable than the teacher and the most knowledge in the world if Allah gives you tawfiq. That's how you should be. So Allah's bounty is not restricted. However, if you have the correct methodology and you put in the right ingredients, right? The hard work, the ikhlas, the dua, all the other things that are needed, you should be able to obtain that level by Allah's permission. Again, if you're not doing other preventatives, by Allah's permission and tawfiq, you can reach it in a very short amount of time. Example, scholars in the past used to mention this. At a certain amount of years, somebody used to come out a serious student. For example, Sheikh Saleh bin Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh, the Mufti rahimahullah, after Sheikh Saleh bin Abdul Aziz al-Sheikh, the senior scholar in Saudi Arabia, he mentions in his biography of his father, Muhammad bin Rahim al-Sheikh, that at his time, a student who was serious in knowledge would be produced in 7 years. 7 years, they used to produce somebody, it's a firm student of knowledge. And we know Sheikh Mufti Ibrahim is the teacher of Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah. Again, Sheikh Saleh al-Sheikh himself being the grandson. And what curriculum, what were they doing? What was so special? It's not something different they're doing. They used to use the Matun Talib Ilm they were using. But the way that they study it, the way they go through it, this is the difference. But it shows you that it used to be something known. And even more interesting, Ibn Khaldun, he writes in his Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun, the Tunisian sociologist and historian, he says, what I noticed in Maghreb, in Morocco, a student will study and he would finally finish the madaris, the madrasa level, after 16 years. But he says here in Tunis, it takes us 5 years. Allahu Akbar. It took 16 in Morocco, 5 years in Tunis, he said. And he said the reason why is the issue of their curriculum. Again, Ibn Khaldun has lots of information, his Muqaddimah, it's in English too, about how to learn, the pedagogy and style. It's very interesting. He talks about the method of learning. Ibn Khaldun is an interesting scholar. He died 808 Hijri. Even though he had some mistakes in Aqidah and stuff, when it comes to the subject of sociology and historian, he's the first sociologist in the history of the world. Again, who says that? The Kafirs. Forget about the Muslims. And what is he saying? 16 years, he found them fasted 5 years. See, brothers and sisters, it's very important. And again, the other numbers like this that show there was a time period with some which is certain daraja. Not to say, of course, that the ilm is restricted time. Someone can learn a lot, someone can learn, take a long time, as long as you reach the goal. That's the intent. It's not the speed. It's about obtaining the goal. But the idea is there is a end goal where you can reach the levels. Again, we're not saying that in today's time someone necessarily has to set to those numbers, but this is encouraging to know that. At the very least, passing the beginner level to intermediate level. And there are some scholars in our time, contemporary scholars, who have written books, who put together a 10-year plan. That someone could become alim even, Allah's tawfiq, 10 years. It's possible. Again, we said there are people who did it less than that, other than that. And the Salaf, of course, their stories are many. So the reason why I'm mentioning all this, it shows the importance of the method of how we're learning, but also the fact that we need to surpass and overcome this reality, which is that many people, when they start to learn, they get overwhelmed or overcome by the different things that they could learn, how to learn, books available, classes that are offered, and they don't maybe have a curriculum, or even after they have the curriculum, they don't execute the curriculum. They don't do what they're supposed to do. And so then, we don't want to end up like what Ibn Badran is saying, rahimahullah, years, your entire life passing, and you're still a beginner. And so the reality of these lessons, inshallah, on Friday going forward, we're trying to bridge those gaps. And again, we're going to be very practical, a little bit of talking, and then we'll go to the board over there and do some thinking, because we need to think. Okay, so this is only for brothers today. So because we need help, we need this, and we need to be able to get there. Brothers have to understand Talab al-Ilm is serious, but also as a shaykh to say, Allah made knowledge easy. لَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. Allah made the Quran easy. Who's going to remember? For some people's mind, the ilm became impossible. And this is a mistake, either from the way the person is learning or the bad thoughts they might have about what's happening. No way it can be that the Sharia Allah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is so difficult for the one who's serious. No, the one who's serious is trying to get the Allah made easy. As for the one who is not learning, even then he can learn something of the knowledge, even though he's taking a little bit. So the question obviously is, what can we do to fix that? Well, we need to take a look at what's happening. And part of it has to do with ourselves as students, and secondly, the curriculum that we're using, and thirdly also, the way in which we are learning. Again, we need to have deliverables, we need to have measurements to say, okay, how do I know if I know something? How do I know I don't know something? How do I keep this knowledge in my head? Because the objective of seeking knowledge is for us to go back and to be beneficial to our families, our communities. And as Allah says, the believers make dua, وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. We want to become imams, inshallah, for the people that they go back to, because it's a high daraja. But at least you can become one for your household. If you're married, for your wife and your kids. If you're not, for mom and dad, for your community. khatibs, we need all the du'at, we need all of that. And we also noticed that, at least I noticed, if you take a look at the material that we have available on our website around Da'wah, as well as different classes that run throughout the week, there's no shortage of material. You know that much. There's no shortage of material available for someone who's interested in learning. The question now is, how do we get this information into the student? In the sense that they can retain it, they can remember it, they can benefit from it, they can teach it to others, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So today I just want to cover a little bit about the student knowledge themselves, how they're supposed to be, and the importance of them to seeking the Islamic knowledge, and what qualities are necessary. So obviously, in order for us to become successful students of knowledge, it starts with ourselves. So their books have already explained that, like Hidat al-Talib al-Ilm, as we covered before, this is the Endowment of the Student of Knowledge, Shaykh al-Bakr al-Zayd, rahimahullah, Kitab al-Ilm, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen. You can find all those books if you want more. The most important quality to begin with, obviously, is the person is ikhlas. Or ikhlas, the sincerity, is what will get you to where you need to be. You cannot be successful in any endeavor unless you're sincere. When it comes to ilm al-shar'i, it's based on the intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The actions are dependent on intentions. So for students who are learning, we have to have sincere intention. And what does that mean? Ibn Jama'ah rahimahullah writes in Tadhkiratu Sami' wal-Mutakallim that the good intention to seek knowledge is to do it for Allah's face, His reward. With intention to revive Islamic legislation, to illuminate your heart, to adorn your inner self, and to get closer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to expose himself what the people of knowledge have been promised to the pleasure of Allah and His great bounty. So ultimately, you want to get closer to Allah. You want to purify your heart, illuminate it with the light of the knowledge. Perfect and to discipline yourself. And obviously, to get closer to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the people of knowledge and the status they have, which is knowledge. And obviously, great closeness to Him. So that's why our intention is very important. We're not coming for name and fame, money and wealth. For ilm itself, it's not for that. As we know, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he came and to learn and to teach us, as a muallim. And he learned from Jibreel. And what he came to teach us, that knowledge is for knowledge's sake. So that's important that when we seek a knowledge, we're not trying to come with the wrong intention. Because if that is something somebody has, right, then that person will be deprived of knowledge. You'll see that person, he's going to be deprived of knowledge. How? Because his intention is not good. That person is going to end up either giving up too fast, or you'll find that person, he will become arrogant, right? Because that was his intention, right? Or you find that after he learned, instead of purifying him, it's making him worse. But now he's transgressing against others, right? And this is possible with knowledge. بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُمْ, right? Allah says that's what they did. The Bani Israel, when they had the knowledge, they started to denounce and look down on one another, argue out of transgression and arrogance. So the reason why this is important, the real student knowledge wants to gain knowledge in order to get closer to Allah. So that has to come with intention is clean. And when you have the correct intention also, you're going to come with humility. Otherwise, we have the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "Man talab al-ilmi, man talab al-ilma, liyumari bihi sufaha." Whosoever seeks knowledge to argue with the ignorant, or yubahi bihi al-ulama, or to compete and to show off before the scholars, أو ليسرف وجوه الناس إليه. This part of this, to get the face of the people to turn towards them. فهو في النار. That person will be the hellfire. Hadith sahih. Okay, this is how we have to come with ilm. We're not getting knowledge so you can become the number one on TikTok and YouTube. What's the benefit? People more knowledgeable than us, they don't do that. So why would someone less knowledgeable think that's good? But this isn't a problem, right? If someone's intention, قُلْ كُلٌّ يَعْمَلُ عَلَى شَاكِلَتِهِ. So everyone acts in accordance to his intention. So very important for us to pay attention, because the person who's trying to get out and become the most famous is, what is he going to learn? A little bit here and there just to fool the maskeen. He's not going to fool someone knowledgeable. He'll take a little bit here and there, mix everything together, and the maskeen will say, MashaAllah. Because the jahil doesn't know himself is jahil. Remember, the jahil, everybody's knowledgeable. Anyone who's above him is knowledgeable. So he's going to have here and there and say, look at me, MashaAllah. And brothers and sisters, that's not difficult. The real knowledge we're looking for, we want to get closer to Allah. So why I mentioned this hadith, very important hadith, to pay attention that our attention should not be to go one up somebody. You don't learn something, so you go and you argue with your family, And this is the first stage of knowledge too, right? When you learn something, you think you become Shaykh al-Islam. And later on, you become nothing. First shibri, like I think I'm Shaykh al-Islam. You only know one mas'ala. You don't even know the khilaf al-mas'ala. Then you're like, look how knowledgeable I am. And then you meet somebody else and tells you, there's two opinions. The house comes crashing down. What? Two opinions? I had qawl rajih in my head. I didn't even know it's khilaf. You're working with ijma', it's khilaf, akhi. Miskeen. And this happens a lot, where everyone has been there. So the reason why it's important, you have to be humble. The intention is trying to get closer to Allah. So the more knowledge you get, the more humble you are. The ulama give the example like low-lying land. The land that's low collects the most rainwater. And the one that's a peak, like a mountain, collects no water. Guys with me? The mountain, does it collect any water when it rains? No. The one that's low, the more knowledge, the more humble you get. Gotta lower yourself. That's important. So the intention must be clear. Okay? Imam Fairuz Abadi rahimahullah said, many of those who look into knowledge for a worldly purpose do not obtain the knowledge nor their purpose. Basair the bil tamyiz. That's a true benefit. That if your intention is crooked, you're not even going to gain knowledge aslan. And that should also encourage us not to corrupt our intention, because you're not going to gain it. So that's the first one. Make sure you have a good intention. Again, there's lots of benefits on this, because you act in accordance to the intention. And even found today, and this is a side benefit, psychologically speaking, they found, scientists, that when you monetize something, because people think that, if I seek knowledge for money, I'm going to become more. No, you're going to get less. You're not even going to seek good anymore. Because money is not the greatest motivator. Psychologically, they found some studies that if you monetize a hobby, you do it less. You don't do it as good as if you take that hobby you were doing as a hobby. The ilm is not a hobby, it's ibadah. But imagine today you have a hobby, you like to build cars. When they give you money for building cars, you don't build the same quality cars. See, most of us, we don't know that. The money demotivates you. Because you already got paid, what's your do more? But when you don't get paid, what's your stealing? I had to do something amazing, I got to wow myself. I got to go extra mile. For what? Because I love it. And that's how ilm should be, because the thawab we want from Allah, no one could give you money in place of it. And if it means you're a billionaire, it would not be sufficient. Because what you can get from Allah is more. So why do I want that? And also you have to remember that if that becomes your intention, it's going to become apparent sooner or later. Imam Ibn Jawzi in Sayyid Qaadir, he talks about, rahimahullah, I noticed that most of the scholars are busy with the outer image of knowledge. They're concerned of the jurist to teach people. They're concerned of the wa'id to preach to people. The former dedicates all his efforts to conduct his classes. He rejoices when seeing plenty of people attending his lectures. He trivializes his view of his opponents and spends all his time thinking about matters of dispute in order to defeat his opponents. Until the end of the quote. You can see it in English. Capture Thought, page 885. You see, at his time, you find many people are supposed to be ulama, they're worrying about this, how many numbers and who's coming and who's not. It's not correct. And we shouldn't be like that. Another thing that a student knowledge should have is also with good intention is taqwa. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is ultimately why you're seeking knowledge, to get closer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, you want to be able to better fear Him. So we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ. Fear Allah, Allah will teach you. So the ulama, they mentioned, like Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, taqwa causes a believer to obtain knowledge and is the key to knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Baqarah, so have taqwa of Allah and Allah will teach you. And the scholars differed whether the ayah is joined together or is it separate. Fear Allah and Allah teaches you. But in any case, some of the ulama, they combine and say that taqwa leads to knowledge. That's from Ibn Uthaymeen's book, من ثمرات التقوى, from the fruits of taqwa, page 14. And we know, Abdul Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, authentically he said, verily I consider that a man forgets knowledge that he used to know due to a sin he committed. This is true, because what is knowledge? Nur, it's a light from Allah, and the light of Allah will distinguish when you bring the darkness of sin. So if we're sinning, we're going to lose the knowledge that we gain. And then we're going to go back to where we started. So we have to protect our capital by fearing Allah, because the objective of knowledge is to fear Him, to get closer to Him. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be one who is the most important for us and become beloved to Him. So taqwa is important. And if you know something, act upon it. Stay away from that which is haram and always repent to Allah and do your best. Another quality a believer should have is sidq, truthfulness. And truthfulness means that the person is not just sincere in what they're trying to do. Truthfulness, scholar says, that there's no doubt in his belief, there's no blame in his actions. So a person is trying his best to do what he's supposed to be doing all the time. And they're not only that sincere, but they also believe in the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they stick to that. They want Allah's reward, they want to stay in punishment, they're not veering from that path. And therefore, the person, when he learns something, if he's sincere and he's truthful, he applies it and tries to live by it, because that's why you learned. Again, Imam Fairuz Abadi says, Rahimahullah, whoever does not have the signs of knowledge apparent on him, then he is one who possesses an ulterior motive, not a person of sincerity. Allahu Akbar. If somebody who says he's knowledgeable, you can't see the athar of ilm on him, he's saying there's something wrong with the niyyah. Why is that important? Because today we live in the world, everyone says, this guy's a PhD, this guy's alim. And you look at them and say, well, why is his beard smaller than mine? Now, somebody's beard can't grow. That's possible. Some people, you look at them and say, look, I don't know. We're not going to have su'ud on anybody, but his beard doesn't look like it's that small. The problem is taking away from the person's status because he can do better. He's supposed to be an imam, right? Or a leader. Another example, he's falling into something wrong. Even the awam, they don't do. And this is supposed to be imam is doing. See, brothers, the reason I'm saying this is that we have to also realize what knowledge is supposed to do. So elevate you. It's supposed to lift you. So the reason is that if you see that as a sign, that's also a sign for us. You learn more, you have to try to do more. Try to get better. You fight your nafs, but that shows the truthfulness that you're looking for the truth wherever it goes. And that means if I learn something today I'm doing is haram, I do it, just stop doing it and move towards the haqq. Doesn't matter. My whole life I was doing it. Doesn't matter. Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we do that. We follow the evidences. Okay? Because Salaf, they used to do that. Shaykh Albani has a very famous statement, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, ندور مع الدليل حيث دار. We move with the proof wherever it moves. Because Awza'i says, ندور مع السنة حيث دارت. We move with the sunnah wherever it moves. So when everyone went to Mecca, Medina, because Imam Malik was there, everyone gathers there, the sunnah is here. That's what it means. You go with people of knowledge, or we go with the deen where it takes us. So Shaykh Albani commented, said, we follow the dalil wherever it takes us. So the dalil says this is haram, that's it. Even it goes against the majority of people, they think that's the qawl sahih, that's what I learned, that's what I studied, I came to the conclusion of, I got to follow it. That's the power of knowledge. It's supposed to help you. But imagine today someone knows the right and they say, but it's too difficult, I mean, I'll leave it off. No, you can't. You learn, you're sincere, right? You're truthful. So the reason why it's important is that when you seek knowledge, sometimes there are some things, kuffar will call it inconvenient truths, but there's no such thing, right? It's a truth that you didn't know about. Something you were looking, you found something, oh, subhanAllah, I never knew that. Now you're in a dilemma. Why? Because you think, well, I never knew that was haram or makruh, or what am I going to do? If it's truthful, I got to go with the deen. The deen tells me. Especially when you find this to be the truth. Another quality believers should have is making dua. The student knowledge especially should make dua, lots of dua. وَقُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا. Say, my Lord, increase my knowledge. And this is something we should be doing all the time. Ask Allah, brothers and sisters, for knowledge. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Salama radiallahu anha, he used to say at the end of every Salatul Fajr, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an. When Fajr Salah is sitting down, oh Allah, I ask you for beneficial knowledge. To the end of dua, Sahih ibn Majah. And this knowledge is asking, it's ilmu nafi'. Ilmu nafi'an is the one that's amilan, you can act upon it. Ilmu nafi', the one that can be practical, acting upon it. That's when you know ilmu nafi' from ilm that's not nafi'. Another dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yunfa'. Right? So knowledge that doesn't benefit. Why? Because there's some knowledge out there that doesn't benefit. So what kind of knowledge is that? The knowledge which you learn it doesn't grow you closer to Allah. And if you knew it, it wouldn't get you closer to Allah. If you didn't know it, there's no blame on you. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sahih Abu Hurairah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'. Oh Allah, I ask you knowledge that doesn't benefit, la yanfa'. Which means I can't act upon it, doesn't draw me near to Allah. And some knowledge is like that. It's extra knowledge, Even hatta ilm dunya, some of the knowledge is unnecessary. So we should pay attention to knowledge is beneficial for us, not one that is not. And try to aspire for that which is necessary, versus that which isn't. And that's why the student knowledge, he should not be, when he's studying, busy himself in something which is not going to get him closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or if there's something which is extra, voluntary knowledge, no, we start with usul. That's when you know student knowledge is serious. Doesn't go on talking about the fuduli issues, going up there and talking about all kinds of things. And that's the problem in the beginning. This is how you learn. Studying everything you don't need to know, and everything you need to know you don't know. And later on you realize, okay, I can't go along like that. I need to know something. So you go to what you need to know. And what happens? When you do that, your knowledge becomes firm. So the usul versus from the furu'. Usul is what we're looking for, the aqidah, the Quran, the Arabic language, stuff when we need it. It's a little difficult, right? That's the stuff that's the hard part. So Talib Ilm is not the one who's saying Talib Ilm, he's just taking classes and Masa'il have nothing to do with him. Something over here and there, you know, today people, they're interested in jinn possession and nikah, and they didn't master none of them. It's not Raqi, nor can he do marriage counseling. So I don't know what he was doing in those topics. What he was doing was collecting the stories. We all like stories, no problem. You can have a time in the day to learn the stories. But you need to learn the usul ilm. What's the point of all these stories? Imagine someone comes to any ruqya and you tell them a story of ruqya. I didn't ask you that. I asked you to do ruqya. And this is what it feels like, right? And we have to be careful that when we're attending classes, they're taking us everywhere but where we need to go. That's why the curriculum is important, because some of the Salaf were surprised at people who jump away from the usul of the deen and studying everything else. Knowledge, beneficial knowledge. And if you want to know what is beneficial or not, we have it in our library there, Kitab Hafim Rajab, Fadl Ilm al-Salaf, ala Ilm al-Khalaf. I must read the virtue of the knowledge of the Salaf over the knowledge of the Khalaf, the latter's cause. There in the back, we have it in English. Read that book. He teaches you in Rajab what is beneficial knowledge, what is not. Like learning about lineages. It's not ilm nafi', especially details of it, because most of it won't benefit. Just enough you need to know about your family maybe or something, but if you don't go deep in it, it's going to take you away from that. Or for example, somebody studying knowledge which is like ilm al-kalam, philosophy and rhetoric, especially for someone who is not even learning it at a higher stage to refute al-bid'ah, just learning it, no. Or ilm which is haram, like sihr or sha'wada. You can't learn magic and sorcery. So the student has to know that. Otherwise, even from the ilm nafi', there are things which are wajib, aini, and there is knowledge which is fard, kifaya. We'll get to that later. We have to know this. And this is why you may find that the difficulty we're finding today is here. As people in the beginning, they're putting together the curriculum, and they're not doing it maybe in order, or they're learning something exciting because the other one, they didn't know it yet, so they think it's not exciting. No, knowledge is based on what I need. So knowledge you need versus knowledge that I can do without later. So that's how we know something beneficial. Can I apply it? Can I learn this? Can I do it today? Is it wajib for me today to know it? That's what I'm looking for. And those are the subjects which I tend to be a little bit harder. Not hard in the sense of harder, but you need more juhd wal-ijtihad. The Arabic language, hifz the Quran, the tajweed. People want to skip these things. You can't. Because ultimately, every student needs to know it. But in the beginning, it's just like, that requires a lot of effort. So I'm going to go to the ones, a little more passive. And the problem with that is, eventually, you might not get either of them. So making dua to Allah from knowledge is beneficial, and knowledge is not what is, away from knowledge is not beneficial. Also, the student knowledge has to, along with these other things, has to also come with the adab of talab, right? Student not just sincere, right? So have to come with their writing pad, etc. And those are to be mentioned later. I don't want to cover just a little bit more. The pursuit of knowledge then has to know knowledge is categorized. And this is the beginning part that allows us to establish how we can learn. Ilm has categories. And the ulama divide into three categories, like Sheikh Sa'id Da'as, rahimahullah, he mentions in his Kitab Minhajiyya Talab Ilm. Sheikh Abu Hatim Sa'id Da'as, rahimahullah. And in his book, he mentions that book is an excellent book for those who can read Arabic, Minhajiyya Talab Ilm. And there he leads it down, everything you need to know to go from beginner to scholar. How do we say in English? Zero to hero, right? And the book, he covers all that but he categorizes the knowledge. Very important, three categories. Category one, knowledge, which is individual obligation, fard aini. Knowledge, which is fard aini, the one I have to know right now as I'm talking. Number two, one knowledge is fard al-kifai, communal obligation. I don't have to know it, you don't have to know it, but collectively we have to know it. Okay, so it's very important. Fard aini is the first one. I have to know it. For example, aqidah. I need to know my aqidah and tawheed. I need to know it. So someone else cannot know it for me. Well, ilm al-kifai, fard al-kifai is the communal knowledge. Mustalah al-hadith. Someone in the community has to know it. So the teachers might know it, the student might not know that much, it's okay. Or someone, the whole country, city knows it. That's fine. Fara'id, inheritance. Not everyone has to know it, but someone has to know it to do it when we need it. Example like that. And the last one is the voluntary knowledge. Knowledge is nafal. And this categorization is based on what? The hadith of Hurairah, we all know, fi Rab'in Nawawiyah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Hadith Qudsi, my servant does not draw near to me with anything more beloved to me than which I made obligatory upon him. And my servant continues to draw near to me with the nawafil until I love him, until I end the hadith. So they use that hadith as delay that knowledge, like ibadat, the actions are two categories. One which is a wajib on everybody, one which is wajib on the community, and one which is extra. And this categorization, the scholars before mentioned, Ibn Abdul Barr in Jam' Bayan Ilm Fadli, Qaadir Baghdadi, and Faqih al-Mutafaqih, Nawawi, Muqaddim Majmu'ah, so many others. They mention categories like this. Why is it beneficial to know? If you want to be a student of knowledge, you have to start from where? Fard Ayn, individual knowledge. Wajib. I have to know what is obligatory upon me right now. So let's talk about each one briefly to get the idea of what they looks like. For the first one, individual obligation. Every Muslim needs to know, number one, the shahadatan. The two shahadas, la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Conditions, the pillars, the maratib, arkan, all the things that go underneath it. You know, it's not that difficult, but also very important. And sadly, some Muslims didn't know. So we have to know those. So, if you wanted to start off with the 5 pillars of Islam, if you want to summarize this category, 5 pillars of Islam, 6 pillars of Iman, those are wajib on you. So how does it work? First, you have to know, because the 5 pillars of Islam go in order. First is the 2 shahadas, the tawheed there. Next, you need to know salah and what's connected to it. Tahara wa salah. Scholars always say wajib. Everyone has to make wudu. Have to know how to make ghusl, tayammum, masah, and salah. Jama'ah, if you're praying jama'ah, you need to know that. Jum'ah, you need to know that. By yourself, you need to know that. Sujood sahw, you need to know that. It's all connected. So what's connected to the salah too? So that's why scholars always start with tahara. No one can say, I don't know, I didn't get to wudu yet. You know, you just know you didn't get to wudu. Wudu is every day, you need it 5 times a day. So scholars say then the prayer and what's connected to it. Then thirdly, if someone has money, zakat. If not, then no. If someone's going for hajj, the hajj. If not, no. So Ramadan, then Ramadan, siyam. So you could say every Muslim, at the very least, he needs to know, usually, even because he might get to the zakat later, the shahadatan, the tawheed involved in there, the 2 testimonies of faith, the salah and everything is connected to it, which is wudu, etc., etc. And then the siyam, Ramadan's coming, the rules. And then the other 2 are contingent on the people's wealth and status, zakat and hajj. Also, they say scholars, he needs to know about the basics of the halal and haram. Basic halal and haram, you have to know. Pork's haram, alcohol haram, sadaqah is good. You have to know the basics. I know everyone knows it, but you need to know it, the basics. Hence, the beginner, this is where he starts. He's not going to be busy himself in something bigger, fard ayn. So if someone doesn't know how to pray salah, for example, there's no point of that person learning anything else. You have to fix the salah first. Just like the new Muslim, they come, what's his curriculum? Same thing. The new Muslim, they say, what are they going to teach you? Arkan al-Islam wa Iman. Arkan al-Iman covers the whole Aqidah. And Arkan al-Islam will cover the ibadat badaniyah, the bodily actions, and then the money as well, if you have zakat, etc. And if somebody, let's say, is married, then for him, he has to learn the ahkam of being married. Huquq al-zawjayn, wa ishra, how to deal with your wife. Because you're married now, you have to learn, it's wajib. Let's say someone else going to do tijara, suddenly became businessman. Okay, got to study business. Because you're going to do business now, like this. So some ulama, they call it ilm al-hal. Ilm al-hal, the knowledge of the current situation. So someone comes to you today and says, I'm an ignorant person, I want to learn. And look at his hal, okay? Tawheed and aqidah, you need to know. Wudu, salah, you need to know. What else is going on in your life? Okay, let's say I'm a manager and this and that. Okay, you need to know how to deal with people. You need to learn about a little bit about akhlaq and how to be in leadership, because he's going to be leading people. Or he said, I'm married, okay? And what's happening today, as you get older in your life, your ahwal change. So what happens? Your knowledge upgrades. What's happening today, brothers and sisters? Is that happening? No, the bigger older you get, the more people are going down. You know, remember, in elementary school, we're going up the grades, we're getting older. Past university, then suddenly, become degree holder. Shar'i, you're getting older. And that's how it's supposed to be. That's why you start off with the books, the fiqh, start with the ibadat, and end with the mu'amalat. Right, the mu'amalat, and you can look at the categorization. Some of the fuqaha, they put nikah before the buyu' and simple buyu' over nikah. Why? Because they're connected. You need the money before you get married. Someone wants to get married for the money, right? Allah alam, right? It's okay. Either the closed chapters. What happens, someone passes it. But you see, brothers, what's really going on? Most people, they're stuck in kitab al-tahara. كيف يعني? Tahara and your mu'amalat, you don't even know. Is it real? I'm right? It's right. This is the problem. We need to also realize this is a problem. So fard ayn, you start there. Then fard kifaya, communal knowledge. This is the knowledge most of us we talk about. All the furu'i subjects. The ones that we think about. Mustalah al-hadith, wal-ulum al-tafsir, wal-ulum al-hadith, wal-usul al-fiqh, and details of Aqidah, the stuff that most of us consider طالب علم is فرض كفاية. Means the طالب علم, he's finished the wajib, he went from عامي to طالب علم. The عامي and him at the beginning, طالب are on the same level in the beginning because everybody's starting there. The child, the new Muslim, the عامي, the student who just began, they all start from Ain. Nobody skips that step. Then you pass that level and you get more knowledge. So that's the knowledge you are thinking about. Kitab al-Tawheed, Riyal Salihin. This is the ilm which is kafai. Why? Because if not, all of us have to know it. And then the last stage is voluntary knowledge, which is going deep. Imam Nawawi says, he says that it is to deeply study the foundations, evidences, and thoroughly examine matter beyond the level needed to achieve communal application. So it's making takhassus. The ulama, the specialists. Like that, you're going deep. Like how you see a PhD student, he takes one topic, he spends years on that. Absolute expert. But the ulama who reach that level, they have specialities in different areas, and some Allah blessed them to be specialists in all areas of fiqh, knowledge. So you see, when he talks about knowledge, he's going well into it. So subjects usually in those subject matters are well beyond what anyone needs. So it's not usul hadith now. The Shaykh is going deep in the books of hadith and the manuscripts and checking the hadith, and he's in the world of hadith. Another one's in history, another one's in tariq or history, or someone else is in aqidah. So the deep knowledge, specialization. So scholars say specialization is the end of your life. When you finish all those marahil, now you can specialize, you can spend time, you pick a subject you like and you deeply study it. And the idea is specialization is important for the ummah because when challenges come, we have specialists who can help us. The point of all of this is we have prioritization, brothers and sisters. No one seeks knowledge, just whatever he wants. It's not the curriculum you made. It's not up to us. And that's the first step we have to pay attention to and why many gaps exist. Because people are taking class outside their level. You have to ask yourself, what's my level? So someone will say, do you know this? Do you know that? Do you know this? No, you're level 1. You know this, and this? Okay, you're intermediate. You don't know this? You're not allowed to be advanced. And the classes, the ulama will also categorize that way. Just like in the college university. Right? Year 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? First freshman can't enter senior class, right? They can't walk into 4th year coding. You're a beginner. But today it happens. When talab ilm, someone is walking in class, he's sitting in tahawiyah, he didn't do wasatiyah. Why didn't he even do less than that? It's not possible. Because it's too heavy for him. And this is one of the reasons why some people stop learning. Because he doesn't know what class he is, he didn't ask the teacher, this is advanced level, where am I at? What should I do to get there? And that's what's important. We also try to figure out how we're going to get there. And some people who are already learning, it's okay, you can always fill in the gaps. Maybe you came to a class above your level, but you don't know. Or you're enjoying the class, you want to fill in the gaps. Okay, we have to find out what are the ways to fill those gaps. I want to finish by also mentioning, the ulama, they also talk about that since knowledge is of these 3 categories, they're also divided into 2 categories generally. So there's 3 in terms of what is obligatory. When it comes to knowledge, then you could say knowledge then is of 2 categories in terms of how it is instrumentalized or its use. First level is called ulum al-alat or ilm al-ala, ancillary or instrumental knowledge. Ilm al-ala. Ilm al-ala is the tools to get to where you're going. So you can think about ilm al-ala, instrumental knowledge, as the means. In the second category, ilm al-ghaya. Ilm al-ghaya is the purpose, the objective. So what is the knowledge we're all trying to gain? What are we trying to learn when we're studying? We want to open the Quran and understand it, right? We want to open the Hadith and understand it. So the ulama, they say that ultimately that will mean that the sciences that we're looking for, they're going to be either a means to get there or this stuff is going to get you there. So subjects we're trying to get to are things like Quranic studies, tafsir. Tafsir is objective. Hadith studies is objective. Fiqh is an objective. And Aqidah, like deeper Aqidah studies. Those are the ulum ghayat. What are they? They're Quran and its ulum, tafsir, right? That's what it is, tafsir, right? You won't open the Quran and say, Bismillah, tafsir. That's what tafsir is usually the hardest subject. Because you have all the ulum to do that. Hadith, open the hadith. Qala Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you explain the hadith. And how does scholars explain the hadith? They bring the, for example, you read any kitab of hadith, Fathul Bari, Sharh Nawawi, when you open the hadith explanation, what is he doing? First he does the Arabic part, then he looks at the fiqh part, the usul parts, then he brings that tafsir part. He's going everywhere, every subject. So the one who understands all subjects, he's enjoying it. This is so beautiful. And no one doesn't know what's going on, it's kind of lost because it's hard. Tafsir Ibn Kathir, you open it, Ibn Kathir, he's going to bring you a lot of fawaid. Or Qurtubi is Jami'. It's called Jami' because he brings Aqidah, wal fiqh, And language go everywhere. And so sometimes you notice that tafsir is a ghaya. Yes, fiqh. Beyond the basics, I want deeply fiqh issues, the masail, the khilafat, the tarjih, all those stuff. And then lastly, you have the aqidah. Beyond the basics, the depth, today's issues, contemporary issues, comparative religions, all that kind of stuff. So those are the sciences we're hoping to achieve. But you can't study aqidah deeply unless you have. But the first step was ilm al-ala. Ilm al-ala is instrumental knowledge. Instrumental knowledge or ancillary knowledge is the means to the objective. So what are those? Those are the ones that we all have to begin with. Arabic language. Nahu, sarf, balagha. What else? Usul al-fiqh, usul al-hadith, usul al-tafsir, usul ulum al-Quran. Right? Those are some of them. And there's others. Right? Whatever else, mabadi in tariq or whatever is underneath, they're going to get you there. And some of them are more important than others. So someone cannot do, for example, hadith sciences, explanation, and he doesn't know hadith sciences. Why? Because he can't appreciate the commentary on the hadith. Someone can't do tafsir al-Quran, he doesn't know Arabic. He doesn't know usul, fiqh. He doesn't know lugha. Why? Because he can't derive anything from it. How about, for example, someone do aqidah sciences? What does he need? Quran, sunnah, and he needs language. And he also needs principles. So you can see the ulum al-ala, tajweed is included in there. Everything you have to begin with. That's where we got to start, brothers. That's where you got to start. So talib al-ilm, really to be successful, he needs to go from ground zero. You're building a house, you got to build the ground zero. You got to build before you build the first level, you got to build the hole to get in there to start. And the foundation is even missing. And that's why so many people, they later realize that without doing the foundation, they're not really enjoying it. Versus somebody who went through those things, they're like, man, this is beautiful. Because he has a connection, he can follow Allah. So why is this important? You need to have prioritization. Awlawiyat. Awlawiyat means prioritization. Fil ilm, sorry. And now he says, rahimahullah, it is necessary for the student knowledge to begin his or her lessons with the mashayikh and memorization, repetition, and reading books with the most important subject, then followed by the next most important subject. You gotta go from the beginning like that. Not the one you like, not the one that's easier, the one I need. The one I'm a beginner, I need to start there. And I want to finish now by mentioning, the scholars, when they talk about this, they say that ultimately, if someone is going in those levels, he will reach, inshallah ta'ala, his objective. And what is the objective? They're going to be able to go from the science, which is ancillary or instrumental, and they can get their way into the knowledge, which is the objective. So now, they did a little bit, if they finish all the foundations of the sciences, then they layer. You're using a layering approach. Level 1, I cover a little bit of every subject. I have one science, one book I did, one lesson or series. Then I finished that, level 1. Intermediate level, I layered now again. I'm going the same subject all over again. Now I'm going to intermediate level books. When I finish that, then I'm going to the higher level books. When I finish that, now I can go into the deep books. Now I can go and I can spend time. So scholars, they mention that it's not as difficult as someone would imagine, provided someone does what they're supposed to do. So how many books are between you and the going to ilm al-ghaya? To be honest, it could be 3 books. Yeah, sometimes 3 books, khalas. If you do it properly, then you're there. Fiqh, for example, someone wants to become a faqih, you have to finish usul al-fiqh. How many books of usul al-fiqh you have to do? Ideally speaking, the more the better. Realistically speaking, do 3 books, you can go into the fiqh then. You can go into fiqh, you're usuli. Someone say only 3 books? Yeah, but the 3 books are at levels. Level 1, 2, and 3. The hard ones that will take longer, the middle will take longer, the first one's easy. The problem is the first one sometimes. The first brick that's laid got crooked. Right? You're building the house, the first one was crooked, unfortunately. So you couldn't build the second one because you didn't get the first brick right. You got to correct that first brick. And this is why you find so many people, they're trying to get over there, and then, when you have the map, you are here. You're still there. It's like, what's going on? Can't find the store. I'm still stuck here. And the reason is because either maybe the book you use is not the best, or the way you learned is not maybe ideal. Sometimes it's true. We are different, all of us. Sometimes that's why the ulama have many curriculums and many books. But it's true. Some shuyukh, they made things so easy. And literally, they made some subjects as accessible as possible. With the proper student and the proper energy and effort, someone can. Allah subhanahu get to where they need to go. Now the goal obviously is not for someone to get to the ilm al-ghaya, just like that. It's to get there properly, so it takes you time. But imagine somebody is going down the path, you will eventually reach that path. Eventually. And the reason why it's important to follow those steps, Imam al-Gharafi, he talks about in Kitab al-Anwar al-Buruq, he talks about in there, it's very important that those who are sharp in the memorization, because the ilm also requires memory, memorization and excellent in their understanding and their good conduct and their intention. These are the people who will flourish. So the qualities that ultimately are required, it's not speed. You see, did he mention speed in there? You didn't see the person who gained the knowledge quickest. You need dabt, you have good memorization and recall of information, good understanding of what you memorized and learned, also good niyyah, intention, and akhlaq, and also character and dealings. Knowledge is memorization and the understanding. They go together. It's not one over the other. It's both. And there's levels to them. Levels of understanding, levels of memorization. The goal is, in order to be good, you need to have precision. That's the key. We're trying to get there. So we need to move away from speed. So you can go fast, some people slower. But the goal is, you got there. This doesn't really matter, right? That's the question sometimes we have to ask ourselves. Some people say, it's going to take me 25 years. Doesn't matter. What are you going to do in 25 years anyways, right? It's going to be alive. So you got there. Some people think when they get there, then khalas, you're going to sit back on the couch in retirement. There's no such thing. When you finish, if someone became knowledgeable quickly, we do more da'wah. So you find this is the problem. And that's the thing we have to remember, brothers. It's the objective that why we have to pressure ourselves to work harder. Ilm, amal, da'wah, sabr. When you gain knowledge and action, you have to do da'wah. That's the real thing that we need to get out there. And then we need patience on the way. But if you're saying to yourself, just to get the first level of ilm wal amal is taking too long, or you made it more complicated, or you made a goal unachievable. Okay, knowledge should not have low ambitions, and it should not lower themselves, self-esteem, and say, I'm jahil, I can't understand nothing. No, there's a will, there's a way. If somebody don't understand, someone else can help you. But you also have to think good of yourself and say, I can do it. And the ulama also mentioned these points to advise the student not to be hasty, but also to be careful of trying to move away from the things that you need to do versus the things that you like to do. We would all love to do some benefit of guiding people to Islam or teaching something. This is all beneficial, but ultimately that's not what you're learning. You want to learn for your own self. So we always have to remember that the curriculum is important. So in order for us to be successful, we need to start off there. And many times you find this is what we're skipping. Partly the reason why it's being hard to teach is because we're not in a madrasa or a maktab, right, system. These are open muhadarat. So people sit in different levels, in darajat, right? Everyone has levels. So some of the problems become, some of us become higher level, some have khalfiyya, background, some have no khalfiyya, no background. Some of us we study the subject maybe once, some of us we never saw it before. So with this, we need to have a second session. So our second session, inshallah, maybe starting next week, we're going to start. After we finish a reminder about this, then we're going to go on the board there and we're going to start from the beginning, from those levels that we need, especially some of the subjects where I believe some of us would benefit from. And the reason why is if we don't go from there, we're always going to have that gap. It's like someone trying to memorize the Quran and he still didn't do any tajweed. Eventually you're going to have to deal with it. You got to face it. But also the fact that we need to, because ulum al-ana come for al-maghayr. You can't be trying to, do something you don't know this subject. You have to study it. And that's what the difference between a real student and a not a serious student. Serious student says, whatever is the shaykh, I have to do it, that's I'm going to do it. What is the book? What is the title? I've got to do it. And that's another thing, the commitment that we need to have. So ulama always warn against the student who jumps around here and there. Man thabata nabata. Whosoever is firm grows. So when the shaykh or teacher tells you, okay, you're going to study this book, we're going to study it. So it may take us 10 years or 1 year, let's say it takes us too long, doesn't matter. Stick to it because you'll get it. But let's say there's a curriculum, you found another one online. This is one of the problems, right? You find people today, it's like they're shopping for plans, which is the cheaper one. There's no discount here. You're not going to get any faster. So if someone told you a way to do it, and it's beneficial, you can compare it to another one. But if you find something works, stick with it. And also be careful of trying to give up too fast. A lot of people also, they're a little bit hasty, not hasty, a little bit, quite a bit hasty. Because when you look at how you have to study, pull back, the levels. Okay, I got to go from the beginning. Literally, where is the beginner level? Beginner is beginning, scratch. And we also need some kinds of review for each other, because also the knowledge that we're trying to gain requires us also, brothers and sisters, to repeat and to review and to recall and to dispute. Some matters we can debate and discuss. Not no more debate, but discuss it. And the ulama, they do it. They bring a masala. What's the khilaf? Who knows it? What's the dalil? what's the ta'leel, what's the dalala. You have to review your knowledge, otherwise it's not going to be with you. And that's what the students now should be doing. At the same time, when you learn something, you learn it well, you go around, you teach somebody else. That's another way to keep your knowledge there. But what's happening also is that you find that after all these lessons are going, someone could have been in the lesson, but he wasn't there. He was there, but wasn't there. He wasn't there physically, but then he just, nothing stayed. So you have to also come up with a system. We'll talk about later how to recall this information. How you take down these notes so that when you look at them, you have it in front of you. What you said is all here. I can see it in front of me. I wrote it down years ago, and it should be that way. Something you wrote down a couple of years ago, you should be able to see it. And if you don't see it, you have to review it in your notes. You should be able to do that. But also remember, using the knowledge, using it, acting upon it, that's the best way to help us. And inshallah, we'll also share a curriculum as we go along that can be advisable to use. But the real part to these lessons on Friday, I want to be more practical, that we start from the basics. So what we'll do next week, inshallah, most of the brothers, they're interested in Arabic, right? Studies, I believe this is where they want to start. And Arabic studies, the curriculum that you can study, there are many. There are already many classes. Fajr is doing one, Aish is doing one. There's no shortage of Arabic classes. We need more. But to really benefit, inshallah, what we'll do next week, we'll start from the beginning. And that's to do with reading Arabic. You see, sometimes we will say, how do we learn Arabic? Okay, look at the levels, brothers. Reading Arabic, number 1, reading with tashkil. Number 2, reading Arabic with no tashkil. Number 3, writing Arabic, imla. Then 3rd, 4th, sarf, morphology. Then 5th, grammar, nahu. Then 6th is balagha. If you do it this way, then you're going to be, inshallah. The next year we're going to look at, I think most of us know how to read Arabic. It's okay if you don't know, brothers. There's no shyness. Qawaid Nuraniyya, we can go from there. But we're going to also learn next week how to read Arabic without tashkil. A lot of people think, how many of us can be confident say we can do that? I'm not talking about i'rab, but I'm not talking about the end of the word, I'm talking about the beginning of the word. It's fatha kasra dhamma. That's where somebody gets stuck. What is this word? It's the sakun after that, sakin. And this, I'm being honest. This is where we have to begin. And there are secrets. In case you're confused, there are qawaid. I will show you next week. Qawaid to teach you how to read. We do tashkil. Because Arab, everything is systemic. They don't do things by accident. And so when you learn this, you see, subhanAllah, something like this can be learned. Then qawaid imla, right, how to learn how to read Arabic. There are qawaid. Again, each of these lessons is very short. Again, some of them maybe take us 30, 40 minutes so we can learn most of it, or do a little bit to practice. And the reason why it's important, after you get to reading and writing Arabic, that's what you're supposed to do in the maktab. And so we know the kids, they go to madrasa, that's what they do in madrasa. Then you go up. And then also sarf before nahu, for most of us, is more beneficial because you need to learn about the structure of the word before you know the ending, its case endings. And also when it comes to Arabic, even those ones, we'll show it later, the unique ways of learning it. There's different ways. But I really want to focus on this issue. Also, we can review topics that we already know, like Tawheed. Most of us, we studied Tawheed, we covered it a long time ago, and we continue to cover it, but we need to make firm our Tawheed. Because, brothers and sisters, what's our goal? Somebody asks me a question, I should be able to answer them. With certainty and confidence. Someone doesn't come to classes, okay, he doesn't know any better. Someone says, I come to class, it should be bila shak, I have it, don't worry. Here it is. But sometimes what happens, if you don't practice yourself that, you say, well, I don't know it. And if it's Tawheed, we're doing that, that's not acceptable. And same for any other subject. Also, there are some masail we need to also, we'll share later. How do the ulama, for example, do research? How do you break down things? These kind of things to help us. So inshallah, after every class, we'll spend some time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe most, just learning some of these basic things. And also you can ask freely. But be off the microphone, that one. Inshallah, because not everything has to be recorded. Inshallah. Anyone have any quick questions? Yes. So in this series, every time we're going to talk 30, 40 minutes, we'll do like we did today. We're going to talk about seeking knowledge, the curriculum, the things you need. After that, we'll do another 30 or so minutes. So 40 maybe or 30 minutes, another 30 minutes after the mic. We're just going to focus on some of those, doing the curriculum, some parts of it. Yeah, so we're going to talk about, example, how to build this. So we're actually going to build, we're building what we're talking about. Because also a lot of us will probably benefit from that. Right? Because again, there's lots of material we have online about how to, even this series here, something like this is already available. But now it's okay, let's do it, let's build it. Because for some of us, the gaps. So whoever doesn't need it, it's open, he doesn't have to attend. But we go from there, we're building something. And it doesn't have to only be in Arabic, it could be other topics. For example, if someone has a question, or even how to review, or how to respond to some doubts. We have to learn. So we're trying to do more training. It's more like a tutoring, I think that's what we call it, right? You do You sit down with your TA, that's that kind of stuff, and you go over something you already know to make it better. Inshallah, yes. No, inshallah, when we finish, we'll go. I will show you. So we'll go like either we can go from this side, Arabic, or we can do something in Tawheed and Aqidah. Exactly, we can do different ones, and especially the basic, the foundational ones. And yes, exactly. And also, we're going to talk about how we can master some of these subjects. So what? Yeah. Exactly. So we're not going to go from all of them. We're going to start from here. Let's say for the Arabic, before we can do Arabic, we need reading. So let's start with some rules about reading, how to help us to read, how to get faster, to show you, and also some principles. Then you can go, for example, now practice, or you can now say, okay, now I know how to start it. Because a lot of brothers, they know what to do, but something's missing. There's a gap. So this is kind of like additional support. And if you have a question, for example, or something you want to clarify, we can also clarify some beside. Because there's something that I realized that we've covered a long time ago, but didn't get in the head. I want to show you more things here. Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and everybody is trying to learn, but they also find at the end that they're not gathering everything they learn. It's going everywhere. Manage, exactly, a big problem. And also, I feel that we want to save our time too. So we'll talk, inshallah, also what the ulama advise, some tips, some things to remember, some principles that can happen in different subjects. So inshallah, we'll start maybe next week with one, and then we'll do another. So it's going to be more open. It's not like the other lessons we have a curriculum, but we will try to focus on certain things which I believe are very beneficial for the people, inshallah. Yes. So someone who's a beginner, who has no knowledge, you have to start with Fardu Ain. We just talked about it. So you have to start with Arkan al-Islam wal-Iman. So first you will start with learning about the Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, both parts of it, conditions, etc. And there's material for that. Then he will go and learn about the Tahara, Wudu, and then the Salah. Also from Wudu is Ghusl as well. You have to also learn Najasat, everything like the Tahara. Then the Salah. Once he gets this much done, Ramadan is not yet coming or it's going to come, he will learn that too. But then he turns attention to Aqidah books then. So then he will learn about 6 pillars of Iman, more detail. So you have to start Ilm Fard. So essentially a person stays with there. And there are many books that someone can use. Durus al-Muhimma, for example, Shaykh al-Baz, it covers all those basics in one book. They're basic enough. So Durus al-Muhimma, Shaykh al-Baz, the important lessons, is a very good book. For new Muslim, born Muslim who wants to learn, that book is excellent. Because they begin to teach you Tawheed, they teach you some Aqidah, they Tahara wa Salah, and they finish Jama'ah wa Janazah. And then he does tafsir al-surah, Fatiha al-Zilzal, and he tells you should memorize Fatiha al-Zilzal. Why? Because that much you can pray salah with. So Durus al-Muhimma is a manhaj, brothers. That is a manhaj. Durus al-Muhimma, Shaykh al-Baz, it's a methodology, it's a curriculum for someone who can study for the basics. Because everything in there, if a Muslim knows, it's for Ami. He's good, inshallah, he knows basics. And what's interesting about the book, Shaykh spends so much time reading it, and the ulama explain it even. But even if we just go through that book to read it, understand it, you know how to pray the Salah now, you know how to pray Janazah, you know how basic about Tawheed Aqidah, you know about Tahara, you know a little bit of Quran, Tafsir even, Tafsir of it, you memorize that much, so now you feel good about yourself, at least you have one brick, you have something down. Because most people, that's the thing, they want to have something to say, like in anything else, like in any subject. You say you went to this school, okay, did you study this course? You have to say, okay, I took it or didn't take it. So sometimes what happens, someone says, I'm a Muslim, but I say, I don't have any class in Islam I did. So the ulama, how they used to quantify the class? By the books. And like we said, we're going to start with that, but what we're trying to do, we're trying to speed up some of the things that are happening, which is the gaps in the knowledge. Because the classes are running, alhamdulillah, people are benefiting, but there's some gaps that we didn't have time maybe, or we should spend more time in doing. Inshallah, it's clear. So next week we'll continue like this, then after that we'll just go and we'll talk about the principles, bishallah ta'ala. And so the advice would be for the brothers when they come with a notebook and pen, inshallah, because you want to take some notes. And also try your best for those who are interested and want to learn basics, inshallah, then come, inshallah, if they have time. Come Friday, inshallah, we can do it. Again, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of other classes available to. Barakallahu feekum, subhanak, bihamdik, la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.